Hello, friends. I'm back. I'm Raga Olga De Silva, or Totally Out Now, as you know me. A big warm welcome to everybody. India 9:30 p.m., UK 5 p.m., and Toronto 12 noon. So today we have three different time zones and people from three different time zones, and I'm sure elsewhere in the world joining us. So, welcome to the From the Other Side with Speaking Minds. Speaking Minds, as you know, is India's largest international speakers bureau. We work with thought leaders, industry experts, motivational speakers, performers, and artists from India and from all over the world. Our corporate audience is always looking out for new talent, and we are very happy to provide them. We curate events, and at this point during the COVID-19, we are inundated with calls from various corporate companies for our speakers. Today, I have one amazing guest, Unstoppable Tracy. I mean, you have to read about it, you have to hear about it, you have to listen to her to know what the word unstoppable means. She's rated as number one speaker. She's seen in O Opera magazine, a popular TV host, decorated athlete, bestseller author, mountaineer. She has shared the stage with John Travolta, Dr. Phil, Jane Fonda, and so many more. She's also John Maxwell's number one transformational female leader. I mean, I can just go on and on and on and on. And I'm not sure whether you've read about Tracy. One amazing thing about Tracy is that she was born as a four-way amputee, and that's something that I'm going to talk to her about more. I cannot wait to welcome Tracy, Unstoppable Tracy, please. Hey,
Hello,
fantastic.
hello, hello. Oh, how wonderful to be joining you, Raga, from around the world. Canada, London, India, all around the world. Talk about being completely global.
You are one bundle of energy, Tracy.
Woo!
No
I get
matter what.
energized by you and your world, my friend.
Thank you. And I think I think we are kind of sharing of the energies, isn't it?
Yes,
One of the things that I always think about when I think about you is how no matter what time I message you, you respond instantaneously.
it's just
Do you not
because
sleep?
sleep is not on my radar.
Yeah. So what is on your radar?
Yeah.
So
Right.
what is?
Yeah, while making a difference. I think it was always about I like to joke, I'm pointing to my arm. I like to disarm limiting beliefs. And I spell limb with a B because I'm for those of you that can't see, I'm missing my legs. And so I say I was lucky to be born limb it lists because I'm missing four limbs. And so I love to disarm limiting beliefs. And this was before COVID. And right now, the world is taking care of economy and our beautiful environment is thriving. Like 10,000, no, 70,000 turtles are being born on beaches because people aren't walking on beaches. And pollution in high pollution places are like majorly less carbon dioxide and less greenhouse gas emissions. Like it's beautiful what's happening. But what we're forgetting is people's heart and souls and the wellness. Way back when we're worried about a recession or a depression, but that's because the people are getting impacted. And so disarming limiting beliefs, I thought 20 countries in 2019 was huge. But really, right now, is reaching 20 countries a day is what we need to make a difference. And
And we
so,
are,
what's
Tracy, we
and we
are.
are, we
We
are
are. And
thanks
so
to magical souls like you, Raga, with Speaking Minds Global. It's
thank you.
incredible that you're doing that. And so, why am I 24/7 with very little sleep? Because of the magic of the world being on different time zones. I just want to be available, whatever time zone.
Thank you. We already have a huge number of people who have joined us, so which is incredible. Thank you, Tracy. And I'm going to read out a few messages already before we go on to our question.
Oh,
Michael
great.
Challenger. Michael Challenger. I love the name.
Michael
Go.
Challenger. I know Michael.
Oh, okay, and there is our business partner, Rima Sangvi, who says, "You're amazing."
Oh, Rima, Michael, thank you for joining.
And there are others as well clapping and enjoying, and I will come back to them later. And it says, Rima says, magic, magic, magic. So
Oh,
wonderful. So we are here, magically here. Now, Tracy, I know that I had heard about you for years and years and years. I've been in this business for 15 years, bringing in thought leaders and motivational speakers. Started with New Zealand, then we went to India, London. So we are spread out. Never got a chance to connect with you until a friend of mine, Rohini Rathod, who watched you in London, and she came back to me and she said, Raga, you have to meet this lady. You must meet this lady. You must take her around the world. And
oh,
ever since we have been in touch. So thank you for your friendship, most of all. And I have just absolutely loved getting to know you.
well, and please thank our mutual friend. And
I
fun
will.
fact, people say, "How were you so tough, Tracy?" And it's because of my Liverpudlian mother. And all of my Liverpool relatives moved to Manchester. You mentioned she came from Manchester to give you an update. And so I have some strong, my strength, my never say no comes from Liverpool and Manchester. It was like hard times after the
Fantastic.
war, and
Yeah.
they kind of have this funny humor that's a little bit of tough love, right? Suck it up, buttercup. It's not going anywhere, like that sort
Good,
of way
good.
my
On
mom
that
was.
point, sorry, I'm going to interrupt, and on that point, I'm going to come back to my first thought of you. I remember watching a video. It was so heartwarming and it touched me. And it is the shoelace story that you have to tell us about your mom and you. Can you please share?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And just for everybody listening, a lot of us are facing naysayers. And sometimes our worst naysayer is ourselves. Like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, or how I'm going to make business from home, or no to bosses or future jobs or sponsors, or being an entrepreneur, right? And my biggest lesson, so hear the no that you're telling yourself right now. Hear the naysay you hear right now, and hear yourself in this story. Even if you're an adult or a parent or a neighbor or a millionaire, wherever you're at, hear your no. My biggest no was when I was 5 years old. And at 5 years old, all summer I was told I get to go to school today. And when I got to the door of the school, so excited, my mom was like holding my hand, and I'm looking up at the principal, and he says, "I'm sorry, Tracy can't go to this school." Oh, my little 5 year old heart was devastated. And I was going to well up with tears. And my mom, she didn't get angry. She didn't cry. She put on the biggest smile and the most like open body language. And she just looked at the principal eye to eye. And she said, "How come?" In the friendliest way. And she didn't say why, right? Because why would have made the principal defensive, right? Sometimes our words matter. She just said friendly like, body language, 95% with voice tone. "How come?" And so, because the principal wasn't defensive, he said, "Well, Tracy's got no hands and no legs, and I have one teacher, and that one teacher has 30 kindergarten kids. So she's not going to have time to be able to help Tracy tie her shoelaces. She's not going to be able to help Tracy in the washroom with no legs." And so my mom, she says, "I understand." And she says, "I hear that you will be struggling with Tracy and one teacher. It totally makes sense." And she says, "Do you think you could give me 1 week to try to find a school that can help Tracy? But since we're here today, can we just try?" And I completely understand on Friday she'll have to go to another school. Right? So she heard the principal saying, "I can't be stuck with her. I can't help her." So she counteroffered, "You won't be stuck," right? She said, "We'll try and find another school." And then my mom turns to me, drops to her knees in front of all the kids waiting for the recess bell to go inside. I'm 5 years old. I don't know why my mom is on her knees. I don't realize, of course, at 5 years old, I'm short. And my mom, just like she was eye to eye with the principal, she was eye to eye with me on her knees. And she gives that, the 5 finger grip where your parents hold all 10 fingers in your arm. Yeah, like that. Thank you, Raga. And she's holding me lovingly, passionately, and super tight, holding this wriggly 5-year-old on her knees, looking at me. And she says, Tracy, it's really important that you and everybody's included. Nobody left behind, including you, Tracy. And I don't know why my mom is so intense. I'm 5 years old. I just want to go play. And I look up at the principal, and my principal, his eyes are all welled up. I'm like, okay, my principal's kind of crying. My mom is super intense. I just want to go play. I don't know that if I don't make it outside, I don't get to stay at that school. The principal fell in love with that moment. The principal that minute did not want to send me away. So the principal was so excited to see me in the recess yard. Fast forward to recess time. In Canada, we call that recess, but around the world, we all have different outside play time or break time, snack time, bathroom time, whatever that is. And so fast forward to the snack time, and the principal runs outside behind my school to see if I made it outside. I don't want to bring anybody down, but he never found me. 5 minutes went by, 10 minutes went by, 15 minutes. The schoolyard bell goes off. I never made it outside. The principal loves kitty cats like yours. I love it. I love it. And the principal, just like he loves kitty cats, the principal was thinking, how am I going to tell Tracy's mom that she never made it? How am I going to tell Tracy's mom that she has to leave on Friday? He says, I don't know what I'm going to say. So he runs inside to find my teacher, and he asks my teacher, what happened? Couldn't Tracy tie her shoelaces? And the teacher's all confused. She says, well, actually, Tracy was the first one with her shoelaces tied. What? Well, then how come Tracy never made it outside? And the teacher says, oh, well, her little friend couldn't tie her shoelaces. So Tracy gave her a hand. It turns out none of the 30 kids could tie their shoelaces. By the time I tied 30 shoelaces, of course, the 15-minute recess bell had gone off.
What an incredible story.
Oh.
I'm sorry, my cat is distracting us.
No, I love your cat. And you know what? All the viewers that say you're so glad the cat is joining us, put in the comments, hello, kitty cat.
Yeah,
I don't
hello.
think
His name
anybody
is
minds the
Biscuit.
cat.
Biscuit is from Mumbai, from India. He lives in London.
Oh, from even Mumbai, we have an international kitty cat.
Yeah.
And all of you joining in the comments, say where you're, what's her name? Biscuit.
His name is Biscuit, and yeah, please tell us where you're from.
Yes, tell us where you're from while we're chatting. But you know what, Raga? How come the only girl with no hands was the only girl required to be able to tie her shoelaces? And so sometimes we say, well, I can't make money when we're all quarantined. Or sometimes we say, there's no sponsors that are agreeing, or sometimes they say, well, I don't have a master's in business, so I can't get hired, or I can't be an entrepreneur. Or sometimes we say, the economy has changed. How do I take my billion-dollar business corporate that
Mm.
always used to operate this way and
Yep.
now is turned upside down? How do I change? And so what we don't realize is, if I can do it, you can do it, right? It doesn't matter that I don't have hands. It doesn't matter that we are all symbolically without hands, with our limbs cut off right now in our
Yes.
work worlds because of COVID. And and people want to know, how come? How come you were born this way, Tracy? Right?
Sure.
And I was born this way. They don't know why. I'm too young for the thalidomide drug, and I don't have any of the genetic diagnoses of why people's limbs don't grow. And my mom and dad and sister and my great 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 grandparents and all my niece, my nephew, my cousins, I'm the only one before me and after me that was born without my arms and legs. And I know that I was born exactly the way I was meant to be.
What
Right
a
there,
wonderful way of looking at things. What a
right? I'm
wonderful way.
so lucky. And
Yeah.
you know why I'm lucky is, I was a baby that just wanted the cookie from the cookie jar, a 2-year old. And they thought, because I had no hands and no legs above knee, both of the legs are above knee, that I couldn't get to the cookie jar. But I'm just like any other baby or 2-year old. I want that cookie. So I'm going to roll and climb and chin nod, like I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the cookie from the cookie jar. So I learned to disrupt the norm. I learned to
Sure.
boycott no, because I wanted a cookie so bad. I wasn't being a hero. I was being an ordinary 2-year old looking for a cookie. And so I was lucky that at 5 years old and 2 years old that I learned that no, N-O, just means K-N-O-W.
Oh,
They just don't know. And so now you're like, how come you're happy? How come you're energetic? Like, what's going on in this isolation? But that's because I was lucky to be born a four-way amputee. And every day of my life, I must overcome hardship. I must overcome a roadblock, an obstacle, right? People think it's really tough being home without others. But, I live on my own, and there's
wow.
nobody coming in my house. And
Sure.
now, like, I have cups that are too high for me to get, or I have, I got to pour hot water from a tea kettle. And so what I do is I put my kettle in the sink, and I tilt the hot water from the counter, and I pivot it into the sink, and a lot of it misses the teapot, but the boiling water, it splashes all over my sink, and I get splashed with boiling water, but some of it goes in my teapot, and I'm able to have tea. But that's because nobody's allowed in my home. There's lots of people with disabilities that aren't getting the support that they need right now, right?
Sure.
And
So you're
so,
constantly able to find solutions, right? That's what you're saying,
yes,
right? I have a question for you on, sorry, I'm going to talk
I
about
love it. I'm glad you are.
the disability a bit of it. you know I did the same thing with you, Tracy. When I first started talking to you, I started talking about you as a four-way amputee, and I said, oh, this is going to do well in India. We have Mark Ingalls, who is the first, and at that time he was the only double amputee to summit Mount Everest. And I kind of gave you that label as well. And I know that you came back to me and said, hey, that's not fully me, that's so many things to me. And I said to you that I'm from the LGBT community, and people always focus on that, and they don't look at me as being an entrepreneur, and I'm an author myself, and I
Yeah.
am a speaker. There's so many things to me than being labeled, right? And I just want
Yes.
to ask you, how do you feel when people first box you into a disabled category? Then they have to be told that you're far. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. Now that I know you so well, that doesn't even matter to me. What
Yeah.
matters is this person. You're intelligent, you're funny, you're entertaining, you've got so many things out there for you, and you make things happen for others.
Aw.
So how do you react when people box you?
So And again, it comes back to being born this way and lucky to be born this way. I learned really quickly, at a young age, that when people saw me in my pram, or right away their eyes would often well up, or their face would be, oh, right, and they mean it lovingly, but
Sure.
it's so visible. No hands, and my legs are even more visible with no legs, right? Whether the legs off, or I have the big fancy metal legs, the Robocop legs, and I got to be in the movie Robocop
Wow.
because I have these Robocop legs, right?
Okay.
And you're right. So I learned very young that if they looked at me sad, I needed to look at them and give them a great big smile. I needed them to realize I'm not sad. And so if I smiled at them and I looked eye contact at them, that would cause a breakthrough. That would cause them to shift. And it's true, that even in business, people are like, "Oh, I'm so inspired by you," but they forget that I have a master's in
Right.
business, and I supported when Air Canada and United Airlines and Lufthansa in Germany and all the airlines around the world. Tell me the name of an Indian airline.
Air India,
Air
Jet
India.
Airways. Yeah.
Like they all went bankrupt for a
Yeah.
little while there when the economy airlines came in.
Jet
And so
Airways has.
just
Yeah.
like, right? And so
Yep.
they had to remodel their business like we all are right now with COVID.
Right. Right.
And you feel like you can never overcome it. And so, what I believe in is what you focus on grows, right? So you focus on the disability, that's what you see. But if you reframe, the kinds of questions you ask are the kinds of answers you find. So instead of saying, "What's the problem here?" if you say, "What worked last time you had a problem?"
Yeah.
So it could be, so last time the airlines went in strike, what worked? Or for me, I've got so many examples in my sailing and in my skiing and breaking Air Canada to a outperforming stock market airline. And when Uber was told, "No, you can't come into Canada," it was me they brought in to turn NO into KNOW. They just
Wow.
don't know, and busted Uber into Canada. Or when our national pharmaceutical, so in Europe, that's Boots. In the United States, that's Walgreens.
Right.
In Canada, that's Shoppers Drug Mart. In India, what is sort of a big pharmaceutical company?
We have independent ones. We don't have a big.
Independent
Yeah.
ones.
Yes.
But you have big
Local.
convenience places at discount
Right.
prices, right?
Right. Right.
And so what we did is, because I realized when it's not working, sad people looking at me, I turn it positive. What you focus on grows. And so, like when when the government funding in Canada cut pharmaceutical, 55% of our profits were cut. And so nothing about us without us. Ask people that are doing the job. And so they hired me as a facilitator. And I ask people, "What do you think we should do to turn around the business?" 55% of the profits are cut. Airlines, Uber, National Pharmaceutical, it didn't matter. And what the people shared, nothing about us without us, what you focus on, like, what do you think would work? Not what's the problem. What do you think would work?
Sure.
Based on past problems you overcame that worked. What did you do with a past roadblock? What did you do with a past obstacle? So all your listeners hear your past obstacles. What did you do? And you take those successes, and you bring that resilience to now, and you bring that grit to now. And what we did is, the frontline store people said, "Well, beauty items have a 33% markup. Sell more makeup, sell
Yeah.
more food, sell more baby items." And we outperformed the stock market in 1 month when 55% of our profits were showing red. Our
Sure. So
pharmaceutical was
Tracy,
showing red.
sure, I'm going to come back to that question. See, in this business, like in the corporate world, we've seen a lot of disparity, right? There's a parity between male, female. I just want to come back to, and I'm using the word differently abled again, because
Yeah.
that's something that fascinates me, how we box people. There is a
Yes.
Mark Ingalls who's a male who's fantastic. He's a fantastic human being. He has, aspired to do certain things, and he has reached new heights, right? And then
And
there's
and
you.
even more impressive, losing both his, like, I was
Correct.
born this way. He
Yeah.
lost his feet
And he was
later
a
in life.
correct, and he was a search and rescue mountaineer. So, which means that that was his job to rescue
Yeah.
people. And
And
suddenly,
now
at the
he
age of
loses his feet.
23, at the age of 23, it's a very tender age, young age to lose, things that limbs are very important. However, the question is that male, female, both, differently abled. Do you see that parity even in that particular space?
Oh, absolutely.
And how does it
Uh,
impact you? And how do you manage that?
I think I'm lucky that I was born with a disability because as a woman, we know it's male dominated positions, and we know that there's even appropriate ways of being that's respectful, and people can be respectful opening a door for another human being. It doesn't just have to be a male female piece.
Correct.
And so I
Correct.
think that there are balances in different cultures around the world. I think we need to remember that our way isn't the right way. Where you were born is the way it is where you were born. It's the way it is in your life experience. And that people aren't wrong. They're not bad. They're just living their lived experience the way they know it. And so I think what's magical about Raga is that she has lived in many places around the world.
Correct.
And so Raga is much more open minded and doesn't judge people as right or wrong, good or bad. It's just that's their life experience. And so I'm also lucky as a person with a disability that's traveled over 44 countries,
Wow.
worked. I've worked in 44 countries, worked in 44 countries and in 20 of those countries for long lengths of time as a teacher in Jamaica, in Mexico, in
How amazing.
Uganda, all around the world, in Nepal. After climbing the Himalayas, I fell in love with the children and I stayed and became a
How did you?
teacher in the
Okay, I'm going to
mountains.
ask you about that. How? When you said that to me and I read about it, I was like, what? Is this for real? Did you
Yeah,
really? How did you do it? And
do it.
what drove you to it? What
What?
was that?
Well, I mean, we see some. If you don't know what you don't know. Right. But when you are face to face, like in Nepal, it is the most extremely beautiful mountainous region I've ever been in.
Right.
But it is also the most extremely impoverished and sort of unnecessary polluted pieces as well that I had seen at that time, at that age. Right? It was both extremes, the saddest thing I'd ever seen and the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And so you don't know what you don't know, but when you're faced with the awakening of awareness, you can't help but want to reach out. And so it made me want to stay, right, and be in love with this Nepal community and other communities like it. It made me go learn about Uganda, go learn about Jamaica, go learn about Mexico, go learn about other countries and their developing states as a teacher. And recreation, my sport, my sailing, my skiing. I got a degree. I got an honors degree, an advanced honors degree in the leadership development world so that I could make a difference in these countries. But they understood education better. So I went back and I got a Bachelor of Education so
Wow.
that I could work in developing countries. And then when I came back and I worked at Air Canada, Air Canada was happy with the Bachelor of Education, but they respected a master's. So I went back and got a master's in night school to understand the leadership development deeper. But really, my all of my skills of adapting and connecting as a woman, as a person with a disability, as somebody that's underestimated, like many of you feel like you might be, even with you could be a male with a master's and you too have felt underestimated by a sponsor or by a
Right.
sale, right? You're a realtor and somebody's not using you for real estate maybe, right? So we all have naysayers in our life, but because mine was so extreme, being a woman and no arms and no legs, yet extremely worldly at a very young age, right? I started living in other countries at 19 in living there, and it made me much an older soul at 5 years old, being responsible to tie 30 shoelaces. I got to learn at 5 the magic of being a shoelace leader. I didn't know that I would grow up to be a leader in 160 countries. and a leader, not a person with a disability, but a transformational leader by John Maxwell. But that distinction is female. I'm the number one female transformational leader
So
because
what does
some
that mean? Yeah, what does that mean?
yeah,
What is a transformational leader?
leader is people that make a difference, but to people internationally around the world, but
Okay,
in business, right? There
sure.
were 9,000 applicants. It's anonymous,
Okay,
and it's overseeing others. I had 63 staff
sure.
at one organization as the director in that
Sure.
organization.
Okay,
And so my leadership development and causing breakthroughs with the striking at Air Canada and
sure,
with the bankruptcy and with the pharmaceutical reform when a government changes a rule that impacts your business, and with Uber, which
sure,
was, disrupting the market with technology, and so many people resist that in business. A
sure.
leader, a strategist comes in and they know this is the way of being in their new business, but how do you convert and how do you get your audience change catalysts,
Sure.
right? and
So you talk about
and
breakthrough, right? Breakthrough
yeah,
leadership. You go into organizations and you provide them breakthrough solutions, right? So do you
yes,
just try and give me an idea of, say, if I have a corporate client and they have an audience, which is, typically an audience, we have a very young workforce in India. And the reason I'm asking you is because a lot of clients asking me for solutions right now in the COVID-19 times. And they're saying, hey, we are going through a slack time. We don't know what's happening. Nobody knows the future of business. The
yep,
present, of course, nobody knows, but the future of business, people are not aware of. I believe that we need people like you to come in and provide us that solution. So, if I was
yes,
to sit here and I was to understand, what can you offer me, Tracy, as an organization for people who are very young, who are scared, who are anxious, who are
yes.
uncertain, they're insecure about holding on to their jobs. Businesses don't know whether they have the funds to, keep the momentum going. So, what kind of solution do you offer?
I think so. Well, and there's so many pieces to that puzzle.
Sure, sure.
But I think the most powerful use of our time is a little story of context, and say, when I was a little girl, I was in a waiting room waiting for new prosthetic legs, new artificial fake legs. And a 18-year-old student, a young person, came in to the waiting room and they asked the secretary, she said, I've discovered that in Canada, nowhere in Canada, there are no sailing programs. Children with disabilities are not allowed to participate in summer camp, like sailing. And she said, I want to do that. Can you give me a bunch of names of children with disabilities? And they said, no. They said, for privacy, we can't share the names. But I was sitting in the waiting room for my new legs, right? And I said, I want to. So I wasn't a
Amazing.
privacy risk because I was right there when she asked. So she brought me into her sailing summer camp. And all summer, I fell out of the boat
Oh, wow.
because I have no legs, right? I was
Yeah.
top heavy. And every time there was a wave or
So you
wind and it
topple.
would tilt the boat, I would topple.
Oh,
All of the other kids, they passed. Every single one of them passed. Nobody failed except me. I totally failed because if you can't stay in the boat, you can't get your
yeah,
sailing
right.
level. But what did I do every time I fell out of the boat? I
Went
climbed
back.
back in the boat. And even though I failed at the end of that summer, when she asked me, "Do you want to come back next year?" I said, "Yes. I love to swim," right? And so I went back that year and I learned how to look ahead. I learned to see on the water that there was wind. And when it's windy ahead, brace myself. And I learned to get my head out of inside my head, out of thinking, I can't, I can't, I can't, out of I'm going to fall, I'm going to fall, out of I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail. I learned to get out of inside of my boat, looking inside of my boat, and I learned to look ahead on the water. And that summer, when I could see the wind coming, I learned to balance in the boat. And I caught up. All of my little friends, they all got white sail level 2 because it was their second summer. because I was looking ahead, I got bronze 4
Okay.
because I was balancing in the boat, an advanced level skill. And I also got white seal level 3, white seal level 2, white seal level 1. And so right now we're all struggling. We all feel like we're failing. We don't know what to do. We don't know how. How are we going to mend our relationships? How are we going to talk to our teenagers? How are we going to turn our corporate businesses upside down with the new economy and the new way of being that's going to be? And we don't know how. But you see, I just got my advanced study backwards. When I got the bingo moment of looking ahead for the wind, I caught up. I got my white sail level 1 and my white sail level 2, but I jumped ahead, white sail level 3 and bronze 4. So if you are authentically and trying and deep diving into solution finding, you are just doing your advanced study backwards. It will come, and trust your fear. Exceed uncertainty. Feeling uncertain is no excuse for inaction. And embrace the possibility, even though you don't know how, that you can do it. Don't avoid failure. And you earn
Fantastic.
independence. But you don't earn independence alone. I didn't repel the Annapurna region, the Himalayas, with no arms and no legs, and nobody was left of me, and nobody was right of me. And it feels like right now, nobody's in my condo. No one's around me right now. And I feel all alone, and some of you feel all alone. But I wasn't alone. There was somebody on my lifeline. There was someone on my belay line, my safety line, climbing that mountain. And you're not alone. Raga is on your safety line.
It's amazing.
Speaking Minds Global is your earning independence. Exceed uncertainty, embrace possibility, and earn independence. EEE.
God,
That's the limitless secret. Earn
I'm
independence. Who do you
speechless,
surround yourself with?
Tracy. Very rare for me not to say anything. This I'm speechless. I'm just listening. I'm just taking it all in. I'm thinking, my God,
Oh,
so many lessons from this short conversation with you. I'm getting a lot of comments, Tracy, and one of the
oh,
most common comments, and which is the question I was going to ask you anyway, is how do you? I know you answered this earlier as well, but I want to ask
maybe another way.
the other side of it. Do you have dark days? Because we all do, right? You have this absolute energy 24 by 7. I know that. Look at you. I mean, you're just glowing and you just kind of, that it's coming here, right? It's reaching me, the energy, and I'm sure it is
Uh,
reaching everybody else who's watching, and it's reaching the world. But I am sure you have dark days,
oh,
like a
yeah.
lot of us are having right now. So how do you manage? How do you bring yourself back into this energy when you go down, right?
Go down. I think. Well, so when I discovered that I wanted to pursue my World Cup sailing, my Paralympic, I wanted to go to Paralympic trials. And I found out that there was a man named Magnus Ligedal in the States, and he's a gold Olympian, an able bodied Viking, big muscles, 7 feet tall, the only gold Olympian in all of North America. And I live in North America, and he lives in Florida, the most southern part of North
Sure.
America. We live completely opposite ends of the North American continent. And I drove down to see him, and he wanted nothing to do with me. And I lived in my car for 3 months,
Oh, wow.
every day at 5:30, washing and waxing his boats for 3 months. I was sleeping in my car, hiding behind a great big gigantic $1 million yacht in his boatyard, and just being in his face for 3 months, washing and waxing and helping and running to get him lunch and trying to develop a relationship so he would. And so you can imagine, on the you know 88th day of sleeping in my car, doing slave labor of washing his boats and not getting paid anything, not getting any money back home because I left my Air Canada and my Shoppers Drug Mart consulting to do it. And I go from this corporate world of big salary to living in my car to be where he is every day, because it's very, very expensive in Miami, Florida, where his boatyard was. And I did have like crying days. And now during COVID, I do have crying days, lonely crying days. And what I did in Miami is I look in the rearview mirror of my car, because that was my mirror, because that's where I was sleeping. And for 88 days, today is the day Magnus is going to take me on as a sailor. And I wouldn't leave the car until I believed it. So you kind of got to self-talk until you believe it. And on the 88th day, and many of you might be finding this with COVID like me, that talking in the mirror, even if I said it 20 times, I wasn't able to flip my brain. I still was sad. And so in the car, what worked for me that day to get out of the car, an 89th day, was just like, what can I control? What can I do? And I'm like, today, I didn't say Magnus is going to take me sailing. This day, when I couldn't turn myself out of my funk and my tears, I said, today I'm going to be the best version of myself that I can be.
Super.
And I could believe that, and I had control over that. And I got out the car, and somebody was struggling to get their boat in the water, and I ran over and I helped them with the crane. And then I crossed the parking lot, and somebody else was trying to whip a line, trying to fix a knot on their boat. And I'm like, oh, let me help you with that. And I did that. And then I got on the dock and I was helping Magnus, and I was just being the best version of me. And somebody was about to have an accident. And I coached him through not having an accident. And Magnus heard it. And Magnus said, Tracy, you can sail. And I'm like, yes, right? For 89 days, I've been trying to tell Magnus that I could sail. But because he saw me helping somebody else, he heard I could sail. And so on the 90th day, Magnus said, come on, let's go sailing. And, during COVID, when I'm focusing on how am I going, I had 24 stages around the world cancel in 3
Yeah,
days.
sure,
That pays my income, my mortgage, and my
sure,
fancy car and fancy couch, and all of the
sure.
things that I'd got used to living a certain way because of traveling and around the world, 20 countries in 2019. I've already been in 20 cities when COVID hit in 2020. So
Wow.
at 24 events immediately cancel, right? And
Yeah,
that was like my bread and butter, right? And then now people are canceling because their rebooked dates are not going to work for events in my world. So I had to turn my world upside down, and I was okay with, okay, I'm going to turn my world upside down and find new ways, because I always disrupt the norm. I always boycott what I knew. So I'm okay with reinventing, but the soul, the heart, right? With COVID and being isolated and separated, on top of finances, on top of family, on top of people getting the disability, just so many variables, right? And so even the most positive of people are being drawn to tears, and
sure.
people can't judge themselves. But my source of strength every time is, don't focus on other people, or don't focus on yourself. Who can you make a difference for? Is there a cousin in another country that you could call and say, hey, I'm thinking of you? Or
Sure.
is there a neighbor that's locked up and elderly, and there are children that are painting rocks that say hello, and they're
Yeah.
just leaving it on the doorstep of a neighbor so that they don't feel alone, to put a smile on their face, right? Or people are doing their safe car, but they're driving by somebody's house for their birthday to say happy birthday from the car. And they're not getting out of their car, right? And everybody's safe, but they're celebrating
So,
that
so you're
birthday.
saying that, so you're saying when you're feeling down, when you're in the dark space, reach out, not just to others for yourself, but reach
No.
out and do something for someone else.
Yeah.
Correct? Pay it forward. And I find that actually, it personally it helps me quite a bit. It really does. When I feel really, really down, that's my therapy.
Yeah.
I've I've listened to enough music and I've listened to enough meditation and I've done a lot of things that I want to do. Then I think, no, let me go and do something else. And let me also understand what someone else is going through. Sometimes our pain is so insignificant as compared to other people's pain, right? And then you think, oh my God, I let it be gratitude. Let me be grateful for what I have and not be complaining about. But the other thing,
Yes.
Tracy, personally, I feel that it is okay for all of us to sometimes go through those phases as well. We
Yes.
don't have to be happy all the time. We don't have to
No.
be this high energy all the time. And that's okay as well. That is important. But it's
Yes.
okay to not
It's
be that as well.
blessing in the badness, right?
Right.
There you find your when you get through. I find, so for example, at Air Canada, they had never been through a strike or a bankruptcy, but
Sure.
Canadian Airlines had been through many mergers, many bankruptcies. So when we went through the last significant one, they were kind of like, okay, here we go again, jump in, let's figure it out. Whereas the Air Canada agents, they'd been 30 years, they'd never ever been through something, and they were resistant and they had a horrible time, and it was very hard. So
Sure.
someone like you and me, Raga, that are well traveled and been through a lot, like I've been through the disability, you've been through the lesbian, bi, gay, trans, queer, plus
Whatever.
conversation,
And more, so much more, right?
and so much
Yeah.
more. The
Yeah.
adversity, yeah, the death of people that are important to us, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and job losses that are important to us, and
Sure.
people counting on us with our children.
Sure.
So they're you're right. Like everybody thinks I say disability. Everybody thinks my disability was my biggest heartbreak, right? And it was much harder losing my dad at a young
Sure.
age,
Yeah.
and it was even harder uh, with my first significant relationship breakup, right? Like
Sure.
those were the things that were hard
Yeah.
obstacles, which is so
Sure.
funny. So anyway, getting through obstacles teaches you eventually get through it. And
Correct.
they teach you coping skills to get there.
Sure.
And I think the number one coping skill that, like with an organization, is they try to jump to the positive too quickly. And so because I'm in Canada, I'll say the moose. A lot of people know about, you can't ignore the elephant in the room in
Right.
India. You can't ignore the elephant in the room in India, and in Canada, you can't ignore the moose. If there is a stinky moose under the table, even if there's a tablecloth over the table, you know that stinky moose is in the room. You must drag out that stinky moose. You must face the elephant. You must acknowledge the pain and the loss and the fear of, how am I going to do this? And
Sure.
organizations often try to push their staff through very quickly. How did I create breakthrough at Air Canada's striking pilots and people resisting a forced merger? It started by listening,
Sure.
right? You come in
Sure.
and you know the strategy. You're like, how is it? What do you think of? And they're like, oh, we've done that before. It didn't work. Oh, how do I didn't say, well, this is going to work this time. I said, how do other people feel?
Sure.
And then they said, yeah, it never worked. What didn't work about it? And then they share it. And what else is going on? Well, so many of my relatives have been laid off, and how are we going to work? And everybody's broke, and I got to feed my family. Is anyone else in the same shoes?
Sure.
Yes, I'm totally struggling. And then somebody eventually, like, I'm like, well, I kind of want to figure out what to do. And I said, does anybody else want to figure out what to do? And
Mm.
then they say, yeah, I want to figure out what to do. And I said,
Correct.
well, what are things you've thought about what to do? So I didn't
Mm.
tell them, I asked them.
Sure.
And they started to share some solutions. And then it was their solutions, and they
Correct.
owned the future planning.
It's a
But it
collective
didn't involve
thinking.
ignoring the
Yeah.
pain.
Correct. So it's collective thinking, and there are many ways to overcome darkness and pain, right? I
But it starts
first
by acknowledging it.
Exactly. And then also bringing other people in so that collectively you can find a solution together.
Yes.
I don't think isolation is such a bad thing in fact. In fact, I think if anything is given us an opportunity to just sit still for a while, because we've constantly been running, right? The last few decades of our lifetime, whatever. And so it's giving us an option, just sit still and say, okay, what works for us, what doesn't work for us.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I
I'm
know people.
so
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah, isn't it? I'm
Like,
going to read out some comments,
please
Tracy.
do. What are people
Lots of
saying?
comments. People are really interested. And I'm going to say Nalini Menon says speechless. Okay, there's one comment that I want to read at the end from Jitendra Kumar Prasad. That's I think the final comment we will read when before we end this. There's Michael. Of course, there are lots of comments about Kitty. The biscuits gets a big hello. He always, for some reason, my biscuit makes a special appearance on my shows, which is fine. Rima Sangvi says, "Oh," because I'm sure at some point she was I think the shoelace story touched her really, and I think
Thank
touched a
you.
lot of us. And what incredible, morals in those stories, right? Stories to remember for the rest of our lives. Akshata Mahale says, "You're a strong force and a beautiful soul."
Oh,
That's
likewise.
and she
Thank
says,
you.
and you were sharing something, and she says, "Wow, so true. I wish we can just go on and on." But Tracy, typically I have a 30-minute show, and then it goes on to 40 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, maybe. It's been 52 minutes. We've been like
Oh,
chatting.
you're kidding. Holy cow.
You have to come to
Time.
London. You have to spend time with me in London, or when I'm in Mumbai, of course. Your 45th country. I'm hoping that happens soon.
Yes, India,
Yeah.
you have not had me yet. You got
Yes,
to bring
we
me.
India is missing you, and I know many, many times that we've had inquiries for you and we've had work. You've been busy. You
Yes.
travel like what, 25 days in a month. Like,
It's so
okay.
book me now. Book.
Yes,
Let's block the
yes, yes,
calendar now for
yes.
2021 and for webinars.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, so we will do virtual webinars with you, and there's no doubt about it. We've
Perfect.
found you. You're incredible. You are available right now. The kind of stories you've shared, I know that we've just kind of touched the surface right now
Yeah.
with you. The stories you have, your experiences, which are so different to the experiences that a lot of us have. You've traveled, you've given so much joy to a lot of people in the world. So, first of all, thank you for that joy that you've given.
Thank you.
Chirag Doshi says, nice. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are learning or listening in and learning and taking a lot of lessons from you. There is so much I want to talk to you about, Tracy. I don't want this to
I
end.
know, me
I
too.
know. But we may have an unstoppable Tracy part two soon, I think, by public demand, because I
Yes.
am getting a lot of messages saying, "Hey, we want more," but there is a little
They,
limitation to this Facebook Live that we have. There's a
it
time
will cut
limit.
us off. Yeah.
The friend who connected us, Rohini Rathod, she says
Rohini.
hello. Rohini
Hello,
says hello.
Rohini.
She
Thank
says
you.
so
Thank
she's
you, Rohini.
in
Oh,
listening. And thank you, Rohini. I'm so grateful to you for introducing me to Tracy and
likewise.
to the world, to Tracy, and I hope India takes Tracy to our land and to many, many other parts of the world. So, Tracy, thank you so much. I
Thank
have
you.
to read this message before you go, and one last message from you, a short message, but let me read this message from Jitendra Kumar Prasad. He says, Tracy, I'm bowing my head to you, and
Oh,
I am as well. You're incredible. Incredible. Is there
oh.
a final message you want to give our audience?
Can I tell you that I don't know what's going on in your world? Those of you listening in, and the extreme realities for you. I know that I have every excuse, being in this apartment alone and four-way amputee traveling to 20 countries, and I have nobody would judge me. It's very realistic that I have some kind of caregiver and I live on the government disability pension. But I know when I live a life of no excuses, I live a life of no limits. No excuses, no limits.
No
It's a little bit of
excuses,
tough
no
love.
limits.
Yes, no excuses, no limits.
We're going to take that. No excuses, no limits.
Yes.
And thank you so much, Unstoppable Tracy. I hope we can take a small bit of you with us so that
Take
we
a
can
big
also.
bit of me.
No, we want a small bit at a time because we want to be unstoppable a little bit at a time. Thank you
You
very
are.
much. Thank you. And thank you from Speaking Minds. Do log in www.speakingminds.com. And I have to thank Nicola Fenton, our third business partner. So there are four partners in
Yes.
the business. That's me, Nicola Fenton, Rima Sangvi, who was watching us and was making comments, Milind Soman, and thank you from all of us. And we hope to welcome you in India and to India very soon, Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Raga.
Thank you. Be
Thank you.
unstoppable.
Woo! Speaking Minds Global. Woo!
Speakingminds.com.
Yep. You can do it.